pieces at the beginning.
Okay. Well, he just said the word box.
Yeah. Do you want to? Yeah, we just in the box. Do you want to? Do you want to repeat that opening line, Juan?
Say it one more time. I'm sorry.
Do you want to repeat your opening line about keeping all the monsters in the boxes, etc.?
Oh my gosh, monsters in the boxes. They got furry arms and toes, and it's, got to keep them all in their boxes. Give me a break.
Okay. Well, it's good to see you, buddy. It looks like you're in somewhere warm, so I'd assume probably the state of Nevada somewhere.
Yeah, I'm. You can see some of the palm trees. You hear aircraft going over every minute or two. So.
Okay. Well, welcome. Without further ado, let's kick off. So, welcome everyone. This is Tom Sidney Bushnell, aka Numbers. Welcome to Psych.Club, and I've got some wonderful guests and people with me today. So we've got Rachel, Right Side Blonde, and we have a new guest with us. Well, she's been with me and Rachel before, but a new guest to share the stage here with Juan. That's Kathy, Mrs. Handy. Are you plugged in, Kathy? Can you hear us?
I think she's still trying to connect to audio. So
okay, she's still trying to connect, but anyway, I've introduced her, but she'll get in soon. And we have Mr. 107 in the house, and as you can see, he's enjoying some palm trees on the open road. So, Juan, what have you got for us? What's been happening since we spoke just around Christmas time when me and Rachel did our Christmas episode? What is in the frying pan right now, sir?
Well, the main thing here across the U.S. is the election integrity work. There's a couple different lanes there. It's what do you do to protect the elections moving forward, knowing that there was all sorts of mischief that occurred in the last election. And then even more importantly, what are we going to do? How do we address the fraud in the prior election and unwind what has occurred here? Those people that want to say that everything was cool and it was the best election process ever in the history of the world and all that kind of stuff, that's just wrong. It's not true. And so we know that. We have great proof of it. We're not going to, take the, mainstream media line as being gospel. It just isn't. And so there's a number of cases across the country. I'm tracking personally about 100 cases and have dealt with many of the legal teams and the persons who are actually the parties to the suits. So I'm pretty familiar. The patterns are becoming more and more clear. And behind the scenes, there certainly is stuff that I'm aware of that I don't necessarily share broadly, but we know what the data is behind the scenes and have a very good track on it. So we're looking at what are the entry points to provide some of that material at the right moments, and drop it in from helicopters and let the show begin.
What do you think those correct moments may be in terms of maybe not specific dates per se, but kind of a distance, or are we looking weeks, months, a season or two? What are you thinking?
We don't have years to solve this. We don't even have long months to solve this. We're getting down to critical moments. In fact, I'll just tell you that, for example, over the last 3 days, several great patriots stepped up. We needed about a 7-figure number to cover a couple of cases that are at urgent moments. And some great folks stepped forward, provided those funds. They understand very well what's at stake. And so they have stepped forward and literal critical days of what's going on here, not necessarily months. And key ones that we're working on. That particular one, when the dam cracked that, which it could do literally in days, will affect so many other that people have no concept of, and I am having to be very careful what I say. There's strategies in play that cannot be compromised, but it's like chess. You may even know, as the other opponent in a chess match, what the options are available for the other player, but until he makes his move, it doesn't change how you can't make your next decision till you know what their next move is. So one move leads to another. It's options that each side has. And as you exercise those options, it takes the game in a particular direction. So you may have a strategy going into a chess game, how you want to maneuver your pieces to a particular end. And you may see the opponent make certain moves and even entice him to make certain moves. Again, it's the game. It's what has to be done. If people want to get upset because we're calling it a game, okay, it's war. And we're at war. Get over it. It takes time to make these maneuvers. Look, I was talking with someone who was in the French resistance several years back, and she actually became a nun afterwards, but she was one of the women that was involved. Very sensitive stuff, beautiful lady. And so what happened was they knew that America had started staging stuff all over England. They knew what was going on. They were getting the hidden radio messages. The Germans are locking in their positions all across Europe and France. And, they're just, when is America going to show up? When are the Allies going to get over here and get to France? And in the spring and summer of 43, we had been moving ships, equipment, boats were being sunk by the U-boats every day. And they were still moving supplies to England, building out that reserve. You'd had the Battle of Britain with the aircraft and Germany trying to take Britain out of the war. And so coming into the spring and summer of 43, everybody across Europe, and especially in France, was certain that the Allies were going to come land and engage the Germans any hour, any day. And it didn't happen. All summer, it did not happen. All fall, it didn't happen. And then they realized there's no way that the Allies were going to invade or do anything coming into the winter. And they had to go through that long winter coming into 44. Then the Germans knew without a doubt that we were going to have to try and make a landing. And the question was it Calais or was it Normandy? There really was no other location that would make sense because you had the logistics to get from the island over to the mainland. And you got the channel, you got everything in there. They have gun emplacements. It's just a huge undertaking and operation. The Germans were ready, prepared, anticipating, knew what was about to happen. And we knew what we were doing. And there was really just this one question, which location? There was all sorts of subterfuges with various things. Even the person that's doing the astrology for Hitler is on the Allies' payroll, telling him stuff and he's believing it. And they've given him all sorts of things to reinforce that astrologer knew everything, because they would have the astrologer say stuff and then they would do it. And he'd be right there to do the attack back and stop whatever was happening. And boy, it looked like genius. Well, how much time did it take to make that all happen? All of those things, those moves and counter moves take, time to work through. So everybody has to take a deep breath and understand what's going on here. We're in a war. It's a wild thing. And we're going to have to just be patient while we go through these next moves. But these next moves are going to be amazing.
Juan, do you see we're in a non-traditional war right now, for those that can see it. Do you foresee any indication of a traditional war?
Well, it's possible. I get through this. It's possible that we would have some kind of a traditional thing. You know, we got Ukraine, we got other locations. I don't personally some of the stuff that's going on. I just don't see it. Near-death experience, it's going to seem somebody's going to. And I do think within the nuclear component, where there's some kind of a standoff over who has control of the nuclear keys. And that's where, if you believe that the Biden team has control of the nuclear keys, even if they have the briefcase around them, that's just a handshake agreement between generals that are in the bunkers, and they're not going along with this. Colorado, Cheyenne Mountain is still locked up tight as a drum. And there certainly is a lot of drama there, but who's actually got those keys? That's part of what is going to at some point come out into the public purview.
Nuclear 74, gematria 74. Nice.
Kathy, can you test your audio? Can you try saying something?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yay!
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Kathy, this is Juan. Juan, this is Kathy. Kathy's been very excited to share the airwaves with you, Juan. So I wanted to give her a warm welcome and introduce you to her.
Yeah.
Hi there, how are you?
Hey, good to talk with you.
Yeah.
Juan, they didn't
I'm up
tell
in a
us that they were
blizzard.
going to wear their George shirts.
I've got my George 57 Tesla shirt. So something you might have seen, one that Rachel started is she started something called the George Collection. So on her YouTube channel, Right Side Blonde, she started a playlist of so she's got all these magazines, the George magazines, the originals. So she's a collector of them, and she started off with the first issue last week, and she just recorded a couple of episodes that I guess will be going out very soon. And she's good pals with Vincent Fushka, and Vincent calls her the George girl, and I could be the George boy today. And Kathy actually bought this T-shirt for me and sent it to me. So, and you know, Juan, I'm a big fan of Tesla. Tesla's 57, England 57, George 57. So maybe we'll be able to talk about Tesla a little later in the discussion. But yeah, just wanted to introduce everyone. So what do you see next happening? What else is something that maybe we might get into some kind of fun stuff, but what are some other things that you would like people to be aware of and to just to look out for or be aware of right now in the current climate, one, and then maybe we can kind of diversify and go into some fun subjects.
Well, the main thing here in the States, and I think that affects the whole world, is what's going on in the election integrity stuff going back to the 2020 election. As I said, and as I've shown in the second edition of my book, the final message to America and to the world as President Trump left the position of the presidency in the White House, and as he signaled using the language of semaphore with the flag as the dress that Melania wore, was the cubes. That comes from my first book. It is a direct reference to the message in my first book and the second edition, which has the same messaging. It's just different on the covers and the print. But the cube represents the message of election 2020. It's all about MAGA, Make America Great Again, cubed to the third power, cubes. We're going to have to raise the game radically in the past to the election time to get this under control and to win, and we are. And that's the working through the candidate issues with the secretaries of state who control much of the election in many of the states. Some states, they don't have the same authorities as others. So there's about 30 states that need where we have to control the elections from that position. That's where George Soros and the team that's actually running him, because Soros is not his own man. In fact, if you go look in the thing that he did 1 or 2 days ago, where he is making some statements about Trump and the election and stuff, he's clearly reading from somebody's printed transcript from a teleprompter type situation. He's not coherent enough. George Soros is not coherent enough to be doing anything at this point in time. He's as incoherent as Biden is. He's being managed and run. As I've said all along, Soros was merely a figurehead. His wealth, the money, that's just an operation being run over at, in my opinion, MI6. And he's just a figurehead for them, just like Obama was a figurehead for CIA here in the States. A total creation by players inside those agencies. And they're manipulating and maneuvering not just financial markets, but how they spend that money that's essentially from a black op, similar to what we did when we took down the Soviet Union. We won World War III. We did it in the financial markets, took down the ruble, used money that no Congress, no anybody ever approved. And we were able to go out and use these financial instruments and locations to, fight a war. And we won. Soviet Union doesn't exist. Russia had to reconstitute itself. We're in a similar situation today. We're in a similar type of war today, but now the money is going into the politics and into the voting specifically, that maneuvers how the money is moved around the world and who has it and who benefits and which corporations win and get taken out. It's high-speed transactions in the political realm, and it's coming out of the financial realm. So when the team behind Soros wanted to get control of much of the politics in the United States, when this globalist empire was in this particular stage of the build out to get control of America, capture America, seal the deal, they started with the Secretary of State position in Nevada. That's where Soros threw his money. They got a hold of a number of offices out across the country in that Secretary of State position that controls how the election is run, who gets money, what the rules are, what they're going to accept as a ballot, how it gets counted, who gets to be in the count room, etc. And the Secretaries of States have that key position in many of these locations. We had to go back. We're running the campaigns. We have numerous candidates that President Trump and others have backed for those Secretary of State positions. And that's going to affect how this next vote count is done. Then retroactively, going back to 2020, those that think it's all over, it's done, it's sealed, you can't change anything, you're full of shit, not us. Watch what happens next. I know these cases. I talk with the attorneys. I've looked at the legal strategies. I know what's going on. I know where the money's getting thrown and why and which ones are the primaries. Dominoes falling. Just enjoy the show. And then people that think, well, it's just a show. You don't care about anybody. You're just playing a game. Look, it's gamesmanship with weapons of war. A digital attack is considered a WMD, the same as nuclear. It has the ability to take out leadership. It has the ability to kill and destroy. It is gamesmanship. It is, pretty hairy, but You can't lose your wits. You can't lose your focus. You got to understand what's going on, what's at stake. We do. And a lot of people, well, I want to do this. I want to do something. Look, go to the school board meeting. Go, back the candidates for governor. I was just at a thing last night for Joey Gilbert here in Nevada. And people turned out in droves to meet him, to back him, to assist him. He's doing a fantastic job. There's candidates all across the country. Just pick and choose the moments that you decide to show up, and don't be easily conned into going to some kind of a operation that is, somebody else is trying to manipulate or maneuver for their own purposes against our interests. We know that there's agent provocateurs that have been in various positions in a lot of these campaigns that are not who we are, not doing what we want as a people to be backing up. So don't be an easy victim of these people trying to manipulate us into backing candidates or causes that don't help. I have numerous other candidates that are not. We're going to go in and get control of our states back and maneuver our way back to taking the presidency back.
It's interesting, Juan.
We're not going to worry about current presidency. We're going to get the commander in chief and enjoy that for the time being in a public way to get to this next level. So anyway, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought you'd put us and then it froze for a second. So you said, interestingly, you said digital attack. Digital is 62, which is Nicola. Attack is 56, which is light. So it makes me think of our good man Tesla again. But digital attack is 118, the storm or the awakening, the silver, the matrix. So that was interesting that you used that phraseology for us just then. So that's made me think of another possibility with the storm, because we hear about the storm coming, and maybe we've had pieces of the storm, but I still believe that we're probably going to come to the storm, the one that President Trump referenced, and digital attack seems like it could be maybe a key component of that.
Well, again, digital attack, the storm, everything else, where I would come back and actually put the emphasis again, in the court system, we have numerous cases that are maturing. And there's key components to that where they made a move, we made a move, they made a move. And now they're running out of moves. See, chess is an interesting game in that the longer you play the game, the fewer potential moves are available to either side. It doesn't become more chaotic. It becomes less chaotic. There's less and less moves for each side, because there's attrition. For example, when you're playing chess at multiple levels, just because you have checkmate on a board doesn't mean the game's over. You can get checkmate and still have other kings that you have to finish checkmating. And you might even have one opponent get checkmate on a king, and the next one gets checkmate on 2. If you're playing on 5 levels, if you're playing 5D or something, which is actually more than 5 levels. If you're playing on multiple levels, it takes time to get through even the checkmates to where the game is finally decided, even if it's going a certain direction where, it's just a matter of time now. And that's the way I would contend we're at right now. It's just a matter of time. We have some key things that happened. That's why we had to cover some legal costs over the weekend. We have some key things that happened that have now locked in and sealed the deal in many ways. And I think that we'll find that over the next many weeks, it becomes clearer and clearer where this is going. People out across the country can feel it. I was speaking to an audience out in Wisconsin the other night, and it was palpable in the room. It's not just hopium. It's not just talk at this point. They're seeing action. Look what happened in the Wisconsin legislature, and they brought it up, and it can't be shut down. They're going to have an up and down vote here shortly on whether or not to recall the electors from Wisconsin, because they cannot have confidence that there was not mischief in Wisconsin great enough to have flipped the vote. So they don't have to say, oh, they're going for Trump. They just have to say we're recalling him because the vote as it stands, we can't have confidence that it was in fact a legitimate vote sending the electors for President Trump. That doesn't flip the presidency. It's not going to be just one location. There is something cooking right now that's going to have massive impact on the country. And I just don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but we're very, very close. I think at this point, and that's why people step forward to support and assist in what we did. At this point, the outcome is somewhat imminent because a maneuver has taken place in the legal realm that I'll be glad to talk about as soon as we get through these next couple of days or week or so. But it paints the other side into a corner on something. And as soon as that happens, the next several moves on that particular board will run the table. It'll cause this, it'll cause that, it'll cause this other thing, and it'll open this other door. And it will be shocking, but the other side team has to play their cards too. We have a couple things to go through. Have we been close a couple times before? Yes. Did we say that it was imminent? Arguably, but we're in the midst of a huge contest with the whole world at stake, with all the politics in the U.S. at stake. They'll pull something out from wherever. What I compared it to even just recently was the Battle of the Bulge. The enemy staged a winter attack from a place that the Allies weren't well prepared and didn't look like anything was going to happen. It was almost impossible. What they didn't count on was Patton having anticipated it and begun to get ready to go respond to it, even when the rest of the command structure wasn't seeing this coming and hadn't made any kind of a preparation to move accordingly. One general decided that he could see what was coming, anticipate it, and got ready, and was able to move extremely quickly to come assist those forces at the Battle of the Bulge. You have to anticipate, and sometimes you don't get it through the normal command structure to anticipate. So we've got a situation where some smart people have gotten in the right position, anticipated, they're ready to go, they've thrown the money in there. Enjoy the show. We think we got a winning position. It's going to be a blast. But proof's in the pudding. And if nothing else, in a worst case scenario, the other side's forces are going to be spread thinner. They're going to have to readjust. When you're on the beach, I love to go to Kona. There's a beach in Kona that I love to go to. Those waves come in, they're just huge. And, did I lose them?
Can anyone else see Juan's picture? We can hear you clearly, Juan, but we can't see your video.
Deal. All right. It's giving me a heat thing on my phone, so I apologize. But when I go to the beach and those big waves go out, big long waves on that sandy beach, what happens is it'll run the sand right out from underneath your feet. When you're walking down that beach on the sand right where it's got water underneath it, it's not dry sand, it's just wet sand. But when there's no wave there, it feels as solid as can be. Man, you might as well be walking on concrete. But when that wave comes around your feet and ankles and up to your knees, and then it goes back out, it will wash the sand right out from underneath you. If you're standing there, you got to readjust your feet. You got to wiggle your toes. You got to hold on because it'll pull you right down. The reality is the tide is washing the sand out from underneath the feet of this crooked election. They're going to lose their position in this election very quickly. And when it starts to go away from them, they can dance, they can balance, they can do whatever. They're in trouble. Believe me, they're in trouble. And we're coming. These court cases are maturing in ways that they're not expecting. And in the places where they didn't see the magnitude of the problem, they didn't have the right attorneys there. They may have looked omniscient thus far, one for one with us, but they're about to get a huge crack. It's not a chink in the armor, it's a crack. And when that happens, you'll see things begin to come unraveled in ways that it's dominoes falling, and one thing follows another thing follows another thing. It's very close now, and that's not hopium. That's just a fact. We're in great shape.
Juan, can I ask, maybe lightly, is this connected to anything that Ron Watkins and Mickey are doing in terms of the bonds? Is that another move on the board? Is that something to do with? Will that have a knock-on effect? Do you know what I'm talking about with that?
Explain that again. I'm not sure I understand what your question is.
So you're talking about that there's legal moves that have been put in position that we're going to see, physical effects of that, whatever that is. I'm just wondering if there's any correlation with the work that Ron Watkins, Code Monkey Z, and Mickey Clan are doing in terms of the bond that they're serving on different people in Arizona and I think other places. I don't know. Are you familiar with that? Is that connected at all with part of the chess moves that are going to bring things down?
There's multiple groups that are doing things. None of those groups are aware of these next specific actions and where we're at in the legal process. So I wouldn't commingle those things. One of the things that you should keep in mind is we have multiple fronts that we're fighting on. It is chess at multiple levels. So which board is the one you suddenly get to leapfrog forward on, and how does that relieve stress on the other boards? That's part of the game. So there's some teams doing things that we may be aware of. It's like I have one particular thing. The guy's got quite a bit of money out of people to do some legal maneuvers. We looked at it, 2 and 3 months ago, and I said, well, crap, that doesn't change the world. Yeah, it looks great on paper, but it won't ultimately flip anything before these next elections. It just isn't, but they got a lot of money. They got a lot of people involved and got everybody all excited. And, but I wasn't personally that excited about it. You can go win some of these cases, but they're not going to reverse where we're at. In this one particular one, and I'll talk about it more later, and then the other two that go with it, we will unwind things, go back in time, and have an amazing period here very shortly. Whether it takes 2 weeks or 6 weeks, at this point, I don't think they stop what's about to happen, and they can throw 100 attorneys at it. They're not going to stop it because they can't get enough pieces to this area of the table fast enough to affect this particular board. So, remember, in chess, you can't just push all your pieces. You have to take your turn. The other side gets turned. That's the legal maneuvering the legal world. So, enjoy the show.
You got me on. Sorry, go on, Kathy. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
Okay. There's been some phrases. I do decoding with gematria, like as Tom does, and things that I've been noticing that keep coming up, like double meanings of different phrases. I don't have them figured out right now, but I know I've had them decoded recently. And you're talking about the beach in Kona and the sand coming out from underneath your feet and the waves, and they're huge. To me, that sounds like a tsunami. And a huge crack sounds like earthquakes and volcanoes. And, you know, that's just what it sounds like to me. I know maybe that's way out there, but usually my theories are way out there. So, you know, I know things can be controlled by the good guys, and the good guys are mostly in control, I would hope, by now. Although I know we're talking on a different level, you know, we're talking about, you know, replacing people in different state legislatures and stuff, but I can't help but hearing all these double meanings when you're talking. So I'm sorry if I'm wrong.
Look, we're not needing a tsunami at this point in time. There's
Right.
huge storms and things like that. A tsunami is God in a normal situation. We can artificially create a tsunami, but is that even appropriate in this situation? We're not here to
Not a
kill
real
or
one.
destroy the good guys, and we don't want to be
Right.
indiscriminate. So
No, what I mean is it would look like one.
well,
I
again,
didn't make it clear.
it's not necessary. This is a very systematic situation where, just like with chess, you're not moving 5 pieces in the same move. You systematically, with great forethought, calculate moves, and you do have to have some kind of a strategy going in. That's why we have chess masters maneuver pieces with a strategy and then anticipate the other player's moves and counter moves, but stay on point with their strategies. So we can't really, you know, just blast ahead without any, you know, it's not tsunami blasts. It's not great leapfrogging blasts. We have maneuvered the pieces in such a way that we now are at a prime position to, you know, take a king. And because you take one king, now the other side is vulnerable on other fronts. We're actually going to take 2 kings on 2 different boards in a matter of weeks of each other. One affects the other. When we do one, that opens the door for the other, and there is a sequence to it. When we do it, that'll be a blast. You know, people are like, how did that happen? Well, because it was planned and it worked. So,
Juan, are we talking about like public awareness of 2 kings being taken?
this is totally in the public. This is all in the public. This is going to be, you know, all out there.
This is a big deal.
Yeah, it's all in the public. Nothing hidden here at all.
Okay.
Are we talking about Revelations at all?
Say that one more time.
Are we talking about Revelation 11 by some chance?
No.
No. Okay.
People that think we're in some tribulation period already are really, they're just not right. They're overreaching. Look, when we get
Right.
into that kind of a period, it will be far more involved than it is right now. We're in a period of retaking, capturing, consolidating the West, if you will, getting our own house cleaned up. The responses that come in later on down the road, that's a different matter. And I think the whole globalist system comes to fight what we're about to do, and that will be their response longer term. But for the time being, they're not gonna they're not going to prevail right now. And we're in a pretty good position. We're going to get America back under control, and then we're going to come help the rest of the world. We're not giving up, and we're not in a defeatist moment. In fact, they made their play to try to take control of the world and lock us down. And that play is about to be reversed. And a lot of them are going away for the rest of their life in this world. And they can answer to God in heaven for this all done. We've got the ball here, and we're about to go running with it. And we're going to run the board, and it's going to be amazing. And a lot of stuff that's already happened that people aren't aware happened is going to come to light. So people think, well, nothing you've ever said has come to pass. Well, maybe it did, you didn't understand it, or you didn't see it. I'm very comfortable. We're in great shape, and amazing things are afoot right now. And I wish I could give you details on some of that. I just can't. I'm not giving away the game at this critical moment. I'm very comfortable with where we're at. And the public is going to be aware of it. That it's not happening in a vacuum. This is not a secret rapture moment. The public will be very aware of what's going on in these next moves, and we'll be able to explain a lot of it, pretty shortly, I think.
Juan, can I?
Would you say, Juan, we're sorry, Rachel?
I was just going to ask about the wall outside of the White House. I don't know if you can talk about it, but in another video, I can't remember if it was with us or with someone else, you mentioned the word blast wall. You called it a blast wall. I noticed they painted it white on Telegram. A lot of people on Telegram were curious what what those little lights were in the windows in the upper level. Can you give us any insight as to what that would be?
Well, I know all the speculation that's out there and everything, but it certainly isn't what most people anticipated that it was or said. There's a lot of trolling going on to both sides. And that's one of the things that people need to kind of be aware of. We troll them, they troll us. Those minor things where people are reading the tea leaves, trying to look for direction, most of the time, you just can't get too bogged down on it. It'll screw with your brain. The big moves are going to be pretty obvious as they happen, just like the Allies landing. Look, everybody knew it was Calais or Normandy. It's coming soon. You had the high tides. You had a certain likelihood. The Germans had the wrong beach, and they had the wrong date. We caught them by surprise. They had the right idea. They were just caught flat-footed at the critical moment. And they thought that we wouldn't attack them on their strength. Normandy was really their strength. And they just figured that just wasn't going to happen there. This is not when you're a great footballer, he'll make the tiniest move, body, head, has a reaction. You have an instant to react, and then he goes a different direction. You have to commit to try to do a counter. He'll feint you, he'll trick you, you make your move, and he's already knows what he's going to do, and he goes off in a different direction. So what happens? He snuck you. Okay, well, that's what's happening here. And there's a lot of feints, there's a lot of maneuvers and tricks to get the other guy to commit energy, talk, opinion in the wrong direction. And so it's a back and forth game. One of the things is when I talk about grains of sand coming out from the other side's feet, look at the head of CNN, Zucker, stepping down. Okay, so now you've lost another key player, just one grain of sand in the big sea of things. But you've lost another key player that can back you up, protect you, make sure the news goes a certain way and affects what's going on. Okay, now what are you going to do? Is the guy that comes in and replaces him or the team going to be as effective? Do they know all the right phone calls to make, all the right people to back up in an instant like he did? No. So are you going to be as fast on your feet? No. And how many players like that have they lost over the last many, many, many months? Are they as efficient and as controlling as they were within the media stuff? They're shutting down America on the media, but they don't see 107 Daily coming, the way we're doing. In fact, I'll just tell you, whereas the president's social media and some of the other guys have come out and done stuff, and they've been taken down within hours of coming out, we're getting attacks in the six figures zone daily to try and take down our site, and they bounce off like rubber balls. We're in fantastic shape over there, and we're assisting other sites to do the same with similar security measures. So where they've been prevailing on so many levels, stopping the conversation, choking back the conversation, and not getting citizens positions where they can participate and talk about what happened in the fraud of the elections or other things in the medical, etc. Those abilities to choke us back are going away. I'm, assisting with the election integrity hearings around the country that came from work I was doing with the SOS stuff. Those hearings, now I just got word from my staff this morning that we now have 20 coming in the next couple of months. And those hearings are becoming much more complex by the day. The people in our SOS campaign, Secretary of State's offices around the country, the opponent to Rachel Hamm in California just on the Republican side just announced that she was withdrawing from the campaign yesterday because Rachel has all the momentum. That's the exact term. So we're going to work with that candidate, who's a good candidate, to go for another office that's needed from the Republican side. And her stepping out of the race doesn't weaken where we're at. It strengthens, because we'll be able to do a couple of different offices now with great candidates in both of them. But for the Secretary of State position, Rachel Hamm has the ball at this point in time and is doing fantastic. Out across the country, we are gaining strength rapidly and able to, come in and provide a strong challenge to what has been very simple, very easily done by the Democrats, or as I would say it more accurately, these globalists who have been manipulating the way the elections and the money for the elections and the media supporting the election process and the conversations have been able to run roughshod over the country up to this point in time. That's going away on them. And we're going to provide great challenges to them to get back into this game in an effective way in the near future. And then retroactively, a lot of those offices they thought they held and it wasn't going to matter, we weren't going to get them, we're going to flip those. And it's not the presidency. I'm not even worried about the presidency. When's Trump going to be back? When's Trump going to be back? When's Trump going to be back? You're not understanding the game. It's not about him coming back as president. It's about him being revealed in a commander-in-chief role at the critical moment to get control of the country back as needed.
I like that
Juan,
line
you
you
said,
just said.
Juan, you were saying you said a few phrases earlier just before Kathy and Rachel, and you said unwind things, and you said go back in time. So that caught my attention, obviously. And unwind things is 8577. So that's storm power, or power storm, or awakening Christ. But it's 162. And that comes to Florence, Arizona, and President Trump spoke there recently. 162 is Trumpology, my digital product for learning the numbers. You'll see the link below. But you mentioned MAGA right at the beginning of the conversation, and MAGA is go, and you said go back in time. But something that was interesting at the Florence rally in Arizona, that President Trump's people say things like, oh, the numbers can mean anything, and you get all kinds of comments about it, but people that get it, and those that don't, and then people that are trying to figure it out with a good intention kind of get there as well. But the rally, the Trump team was putting up on, I think it was on the Rumble channel with Brightside Network, I think it was, sorry, Right Side Network, I should say. But there was a donation text number, and it was 88022. And I quite often like to keep the zeros open, but you always famously say zero means nothing, so you drop the zeros. So in that instance, 88 equals Trump, and it just so happens that the text number for donations for Trump's campaign is 88022, and then 22 is MAGA. And if you do 88 plus MAGA, so Trump MAGA, Make America Great Again, MAGA is deal, and there's deals being done, like you said earlier on. And it's the word go. It's also atomic gold, the symbol for it, AU. But if you add 88 plus 22, so Trump MAGA, that comes to president, which is 110, which is the power, the Christ, etc. So you mentioned a couple of those phrases, and they triggered some numerical thoughts and gematria for me. And it has the classic drop the zero, which you always preach, and it works out perfectly. So 88022 is Trump MAGA, add them together as president, and it's right there on President Trump's, his rally podium, and that was the text number. But the other value for go back in time, back is 17, time is 47, John, in is 23, I am, and I've mentioned go is 22. But if you do go back in time, that comes to 109, which is 17, which is Zapruder, my channel site club, and it's Diana Spencer. There's a few things, but I always try to pin you on this. But are we going to see, or are we going to experience, or eventually, maybe years down the line, are we going to have more disclosure on things like the possibility or the reality of time travel? Because you said you used the phrase, and I know sometimes you can't say things, but can I push you on that about going back in time? Are we going to go back in time at some point, or forward in time, or are we going to experience a time change during these important stages? Is time travel or going back in time, are they any of the moves on any of the 5 or more chess boards that we're playing? And it might be a premature question, and I accept if it is, but maybe you can give us a twinkling.
Well, no. Let me say it correctly. We're not.
You did say it. You said go back in time. So I know there's phrases, but you're you're a Tesla scientist as well. So
let me just say this: it's not about reversing. Going back in some kind of a time thing and changing the future from that point. It's about going back to an earlier period and unwinding it, but in a very real, tangible, physical way from the way we look at the world right now. In other words, I'm not doing any sci-fi Area 51 stuff that somehow, we've got to go out into woo-woo land. This is a very straightforward reversal in the sense that, you know, people will see that a house that was built on a faulty foundation, we're going to have to take a floor or two off that house. They weren't done right, and go back and start over. And down the road, I'll explain, well, here's what I told you. That's how it happened. And there it goes. You're going to see the first year of the Biden administration dismantled in many ways things that were done, and start over and have to redo it. And it's going to be quite a show. From their side, quite a shit show. But it's not things that look like they're done and there's nothing you can do to reverse it. We're going to reverse it and unwind it in amazing, beautiful ways. And we'll have those conversations out in the future. So enjoy the show.
Thank you. I'll say thank you, and I'll just leave these words with it. So reversal is 100, which is Time Machine, and 107 is 126, which is John Connor, Terminator, and there was another one that came to my mind. But you just said shit show. Shit show is 121, Golden Jubilee, and it's also Second Coming. And it's also Revelation. So yeah, these conversations out in the future 91, Space Force, POTUS 91, Spirit 91. I look forward to them, but thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, we have a lot of people that I don't want to fall into a camp where they think that we're just having a playful sci-fi conversation that is disconnected somehow from reality as most people know it. The moves that are coming are very linear in the sense that this is a progression. When I say reversal, the people that things that they did are going to have to be deconstructed and reconstructed correctly. And we'll all watch it visibly happen. In other words, if I have to deconstruct something that they started, I have to go physically in and knock. Everybody sees it. We're still in the same continuum, the same timeline. I'm not jumping back in time before they ever started to build those upper stories that were wrong. In this continuing line, we have to go back and what's the next one? Sorry. We have to go back and physically take them apart. It's a continuation of the timeline we're on. So I'm not talking about jumping back in time, reversing something, in which case those players that observed this, that lived through it, would suddenly not even know that it ever happened, because that timeline never occurred, okay, except for the people that did the jump. So that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, in this linear understanding, the way people see it, we are going to go back, dismantle some things, and then rebuild them, and it's going to be a blast. People are going to be like, no way, are you kidding me? Yeah, not kidding at all.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
I mean, I hope that's clear enough. I mean, I'm trying to disconnect one from the other. I'm trying to disconnect. I do not want woo-woo, and I don't want people thinking that we're just having playtime here, or it's something that nobody's going to be able to see, or there's some secret rapture. It's all spiritual. It's all ethereal. Not true. This is a very straightforward moment that we're in. And in order to get the future sorted out, say with the vote and who our elected leadership and things like that are, people need to see what was done wrong, need to see it dismantled, have the enjoyment and satisfaction of having participated in correcting some wrongs, some evils to the extent that they can be, and see justice. Look, we need justice in America on the election fraud. We need justice in America on the vote, the way the votes and stuff are counted. And we need justice in America and across the world on these crimes that have been done, trying to capture society and the way the world works, that have actually cost huge amounts of lives, while these players have been trying to capture the world to control the future. In their mind, they want to cull the herd. They want to take out 13 of every 14 people that are alive on the world today. They want to kill them. They want them dead, 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 dead. And then from that tiny number, they want to rebuild the world in this image that they want. I've written articles about this. It's what Nero wanted to do in Rome. He burned down the bazaar. He burned down the greater part of Rome so that he could rebuild it in his own image, in his own vision. But even there, was Nero the one ultimately that was in charge of that? No, it was all of those advisors behind him that were whispering in his ear, hey, if you do this, you can rebuild Rome this way. It'll suit your images and make you look great. And so he bought into it. He bought into the whole idea. Okay, well, there's people today in industry, in politics, in the monetary system, that believe that if they work the work of the devil, Satan, Lucifer, Moloch, Baal, and burn the world down and kill off this huge portion of the population like some Bond movie, then they can rebuild it with their players, their families, their way. And, you know, what's 100 years to get back to this point technologically? 200 years to get back to this point with the population, if you want to do that. It's nothing, because they don't think in terms of even their own lifetimes. Nero didn't. They're mad. They're insane. They're criminally mad. They're dangerous. They're rabid in their minds. And because they're in positions of authority, in control of many things, they have, by subterfuge, mutually self-promoted. And they seek to destroy the world so that they can reinvent it, like a thunderbird, like a phoenix, come back, reinvent the world, and own the future. And in fact, they don't even think they're going to die, because they think technologically they can extend their life or be reborn with the genetics that are available to them now, and not die. They believed a bunch of lies, and they're doing Satan's work because they believe those lies. Okay, well, let's see how that goes. We're at this moment where we have to understand the threat, the magnitude of the threat, the depth of the threat, and not be playing, kids' games when this is a game of chess, but with the world at stake, lives at stake, everything at stake. This is a very big game we're in, and with lives on the line. So we have to play accordingly.
Thank you.
Yeah, Juan,
Yeah.
You had a whole presentation about 311, or maybe you called it 11.3. Could you speak to that a little bit, since we're coming near March? We're right near
I've
March.
talked about the 311.11.3 stuff for a couple of decades. This
Right.
has actually been going on for a very long time, going back to the event with K-129, the Russian sub that was sent to do a nuclear strike on Hawaii. 311 of 68. And that's the reason why Johnson pulled out of the election. Glomar Explorer operation, Jennifer, which, by the way, was the single biggest intelligence gathering project ever undertaken by the CIA. It would have been equivalent of going to Mars in technological terms when we did what we did there. And it leads to the whole China thing. When you look at what happened where opening up China occurred in there, all of that relates to the Glomar Explorer. I will do a, there it goes. Very nice. Somebody's got their Shelby there. Mine's red, but my classic. Anyway, everything China related, and I probably should do another broadcast on it. I've thought about it to explain what the deal is with China and how it's a captured operation. Again, back to these globalists, going all the way back to that incident with K-129. I've done huge broadcasts on that in years past, and they're probably out there online. People can go listen to that, but I probably should do a more detailed one now because it's better understood. With that in mind, there was another 311 incident, which was intended, or I should say 11-3 incident, and that was going to be a nuclear strike on Seattle up in the Northwest during a football game. And I've done extensive broadcasts on that. That was thwarted. It was stopped during the Trump administration, and it was going to be blamed on North Korea. And that was stopped. So this has been a repeating theme, and we've, avoided something horrible, and now we're going to flip this election. It's the 11-3-3-11 thing. And by the way, I guess maybe one of the things that I have done extensive broadcasts on it, but and your listeners probably have heard it, but just a super short version. 11-3, the election happened. Within 45 days of 2020, within 45 days, the Director of National Intelligence was required to provide any information on foreign interference in the election to the President of the United States and to the various appropriate agency heads in Homeland Security. That was because of an executive order issued on September 12th, 2018 by President Trump. Director of National Intelligence, Ratcliffe is his name, did not provide that report. Several of the agencies, intelligence agencies, were supposed to provide information to him to complete his report, and they didn't. So that report was not completed timely. When it was provided on January 19th, with less than 24 hours until Biden was to be sworn in, it was incomplete and not done on time. That was the civilian side of government, the policing side of government's opportunity to protect the American people, the Constitution, and the Republic. The Republic is a way of saying the Union of States here in the country. Because I know I'm talking to a lot of people offshore. So the people of the country, the voters, the citizens, the Republic, the Union of States, that's why we call it United States, each one of them having their own autonomous authorities, and then a combined authority as the United States of America. And then there's a policing side of that aimed internally. That's the presidency over the Justice Department, which is the policing, federal agencies like the FBI, Secret Service, things like that. And then Congress with the laws and the money spending, and the Supreme Court on the other side, verifying that the actions of Congress and the president are in compliance with the Constitution of the United States, the contract with the citizens. That's all aimed internally into the United States and its people. That's the policing powers. A separate hat that the elected leader of the United States wears, the hat that's aimed externally, is the commander-in-chief. So internally, it's the president of the United States. People from around the world seeing him wear his hat as the president of the United States, the administrator of the corporation. People understand that president of the United States is the most commonly understood way of identifying America's leader. But the other hat that the president wears is commander-in-chief. The elected representative of the people is also the commander-in-chief. However, once we got to nuclear power and after World War II, the military code of justice and succession was modified because we had the nuclear football. And there was always the possibility that a Manchurian, somebody that's under some outside control for some reason, has got
We lost you for a moment, Juan.
country using nuclear weapons. And that general and the president are in remote locations to each other. The general in charge of that, or the generals, because we have a triad, Strategic Air Command, which is aircraft, Missile Command, which is land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, and Trident Command, our submarine systems. Those generals are remote and away from the position of the president. So they have a certain need to know that the other person at the other end of that communications line, the briefcase, if you will, is actually the person they believe him to be and is not under some kind of control. You know, somebody's got a gun to his head. Somebody has his family being held hostage. The general has certain legal obligations and rights to follow protocols and does or does not launch nuclear missiles to defend or to fight an enemy in certain circumstances. And those locations, one of them is Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. So, and you have others similar. At the end of the day, because of what's happened in this last election, those authorities were not transferred when Biden was sworn in. He was not recognized as the lawful elected commander-in-chief because there was a question of whether or not the executive order had been properly followed, and those authorities were in fact correct. So also President Trump did not concede the election, agree that the election was lawful and that Biden had won. He did not agree with that. So the baton was not passed from Trump to Biden by President Trump himself or by the military. Doesn't mean that the president of the United States and the administration aren't controlling a huge swath of the military. The Pentagon primarily answers to President Biden and the people around him. The Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they are advisors to the president, who normally wears the hat of Commander-in-Chief. However, in a wartime situation, and we were attacked digitally in vote fraud, physically with paper ballots coming out of China and other places, as well as the infection. President Trump closed Cheyenne Mountain March 15th of 2020. as the outbreak was spreading. And he said very famously at the time that he did that, because it may be that we've already been attacked and just don't know it yet. It may be that somebody has already begun a war against us and we just don't realize it yet. So out of an abundance of caution, that facility was locked up, and others similarly. And they remain closed, and they remain closed to this administration and the players in it. Oh, there's communications that take place, and they run the Pentagon, and people, well, what about Afghanistan? What about Afghanistan? Well, was any weapon of mass destruction in play there? No. Okay, well, at this point in time, it's though we took a physical military strike and some assets are denied to us and we're occupied at this level. And so then you come back to the 11.3, the Law of War Manual. If somebody has gotten physical control of positions, bases, offices inside the United States, and they are a belligerent force, they're not Americans. They're people controlling Americans in high office, but ultimately it's foreigners protecting their foreign interests. Let's say China, Russia, globalists, whatever. If they haven't declared who they are openly, then they're covertly puppeteering and manipulating America through its leadership, and it's not obvious who they're actually truly working for, but they're not the representatives of the American people. They're not lawfully in position of control over the American people. They are then a belligerent force. In the Law of War Manual, which is a legal manual for military operations that the U.S. military uses, the Law of War Manual, which was updated during the first 2 years of the Trump administration, outlines how you can legally conduct warlike activities against enemies. In the case of a belligerent force covertly taking authority over bases, over political positions, there's certain legal maneuvers that military commanders can and cannot do. And there's certain thresholds that have to be crossed. Otherwise, they will be charged with war crimes in an international court for taking certain actions, unless the criteria are such that they have lawfully reached certain checkpoints, if you will. 11.3, Chapter 11, Section 3 of the Military Law of War Manual specifies that 1 year must elapse with a belligerent force in control of your country, but that is not declared who they're actually working for. It can involve and outside persons. But once 1 year is passed and the civilians are unable to recapture control out, etc., in that manner, then the military forces can legally engage on their own soil, and they will not be subject to criminal trials, international tribunals, as those involved in war crimes against their own citizenry. We have now crossed that threshold, and any action by the military to retake control of the country from a belligerent force occupying control positions of authority, the military personnel can engage to retake control, and they are war crimes or guilty of war crimes and go before military tribunals for doing those actions inside the country on our own soil. Is that clicking for you? I know it's a little bit complex, but it's an important detail that people need to understand.
Juan, could you,
Yeah.
just at the beginning of that, you talked about the commander-in-chief, and then you were going into about the general, but you cut off for about a period of 15, 20 seconds. So could you just recap that for us, please?
The Law of War Manual is this manual that has chapters in it. One of the chapters is 11. Section cannot be done legally in a if you have a belligerent force that's occupying your country, and so that's taking control of the mechanisms of government. With that in mind, January 20th, when Biden was sworn in, if we say that he was put in power through a crooked vote, stolen votes, various manipulations, then you have a year for them to declare who they're actually working for. If a year's gone by, they really are. Our military can now take action to try to take them out of power.
And what was the part about so there's the commander-in-chief, but there's a general as well. There was a gap in the audio, so it wasn't clear on what.
Say that again. I'm not sure I understand.
Right at the beginning of this section, so there was a gap in the audio. We couldn't hear exactly what you were saying. So you started talking about the commander-in-chief and how President Trump's the commander-in-chief, but you also then, when you came back on, we could hear something about a general. So are there two entities? There's the commander-in-chief and the general.
Well,
you said triad of generals.
It's the more important role is not the role of the police chief. The policing powers in the country, the civilian policing powers, the congressional policing powers, the Supreme Court justice powers, all of that is aimed internal towards the citizens and is the policing of the government, the corporation of the United States. As soon as you get outside of that to foreign influence and foreign activity, that's where the military comes in. And, war powers, as soon as you get into that aspect of the operation of the American, machine, again, normally you can't use the military against your own citizens. That's part of the Geneva Convention. The military cannot be used for policing inside of a country lawfully according to international law. There have to be very extreme circumstances to allow that to take place. So the question is, what has taken place in America that would lawfully allow the military to step in and do anything on U.S. soil involving U.S. citizens or its government? Well, if the administration of the country, the policing and the other activities inside the country have been taken over by foreign masters, a belligerent foreign force, then that, and a year has elapsed from the time that occurred, and they haven't declared themselves who they are. The military, according to Section 11, Chapter 11, Section 3, 11.3, that's a triggering event that allows for military command to then take actions to protect the citizenry, the voters, the republic, the Union of States, and the Constitution itself, the contract. The contract is being violated. The military must restore order. They must restore lawful government for the people of the United States. If a foreign force, a foreign power, has somehow gotten into a position of authority, I'm gonna have to grab some gas here, where they can control us, then we're in trouble, and we need protection, and we're going to get that, and that's what's about to happen. Is that clear enough for you?
Yes, I just wondered what the word general was in, because you cut out. That was also, yeah. Good. Do you need to get gas? You saying one?
I'm not sure I understood that. I apologize. It might be a ticket.
Did you say that you need to pull out? You need to get gas? Is that what you said?
Oh yeah, we're out here in the middle of the desert, and so I thought I had a gas station. I was gonna be able to stop and fuel up, but wasn't there. So if needed, if you got a gas can, could you come grab some gas and meet me and bring some gas for me?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll just I'll use the looking glass. I'll pop over. Yeah. Yeah, that'll work.
Get gas a while ago because we were on our call. I forgot to. So, that's all right. I'll be okay.
You'll be all right.
What sounds like what's going on is almost like that movie from, I think it was 1964. What was it called? 7th of May? Do you know that movie?
Well, 7 days in May.
7 days in May. Okay.
This is not what's going on here. No, that's not true. 7 Days in May was a movie, an excellent movie. It was very well acted. Everything about it was well done. But in 7 Days in May, merely because of a difference of opinion on the politics and the liberalness of the new president versus the military commanders, the movie showed military commanders trying to do a coup to take over control of the country. That's not actually what's going on here. In this case, we actually have lots of evidence of interference in our electoral process. The person and persons who occupy control offices in the country got there by subterfuge. And so they are not the legal, lawful representatives of the people. They got there through fraud. That's the allegation. In which case, the military is protecting the electorate lawfully from a foreign attack. In 7 Days in May, there was no foreign attack. There was no stealing of the election. It was merely that the military people in that situation felt that the person who was the elected representative of the people was doing things putting the people in danger. And so they felt they had to act to protect the people with their intrigues. In this case, an act of war has taken place against America via a crooked vote being manipulated by foreigners, by business groups, controlled by foreigners outside the American electorate, with cooperation by people inside American citizens here, acting in a seditious way, a treasonous way. So it is not the same as 7 Days in May, the book or the story. Even though there are some parallels, it's not a accurate comparison.
Okay.
You know what? There's sorry, who was that? Was that Rach? Some things that you've pointed out, listening to you talking about the Law of War manual. I mean, I've heard about it for a while. I've never really studied it too in depth, but I've heard you talk about it. But when you gave us that breakdown and explanation of it, that added a lot of clarity. But obviously, I've looked at some numbers with it as well. So, Law of War manual, law is 36, of is 21, war is 42. Manual is actually 66, which is also event, freedom, woman, Thames here in London. But if you add them together, it comes to 165, which is actually resurrection. It's also the title of President Trump's portrait in Mar-a-Lago in the library bar. It's that beautiful portrait you'll know of, and it's entitled The Visionary. Visionary is 132, but The Visionary is 165, which is resurrection. It's Westminster here, but it's Christ's bloodline. But it's also, interesting enough, is Law of War manual. And so, even from a physical standpoint, it seems that the Law of War manual is a key component in the physical flip in the physical reality of this change, of this resurrection of America, of the world. So it doesn't seem to be any coincidence that the numbers point to that and confirm that 165 is Law of War manual, which is also resurrection, which is also the visionary, which is the title of President Trump's portrait, which I thought was interesting. And even when you break it down further, so chapter 11, chapter 71, which is psych, it's smart, it's Lady Diana. 11 is 63. That always makes me think of JFK. But you add them together, it's 134. 134 is New Yorker, the Tesla Hotel. And then even take it further, section 3. Section is 85, which is awakening, which is storm, which is silver, which is matrix. And 3 is 56, which is light. Add them together, it's 141. And when we had that little joke about you trying to find a gas can, I said I'll pop over using looking glass. Looking glass is 141. 141 is Tom Bushnell. It's even reincarnation. But anyway, so there were some interesting numbers there, but particularly Law of War Manual 165 is resurrection. If you say the Law of War Manual, that will take you to 198. 198 takes you to Statue of Liberty, takes you to President J. Kennedy, and takes you to President Trump. 198, the Law of War Manual 198. So I thought those were interesting things that came up. So thanks for kind of prompting that line of thought.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned 141, by the way, palindrome number. For people that may not know some of this stuff, palindrome means it has the same look either direction. So it's 14 either direction, or 41, you can say it either way, but depends on what the context is. But palindrome numbers are often very, very important numbers that these folks use. And remember, this is a language, every number has some kind of a meaning or value, but to both sides. I've used the example many times. 5 is the number of grace to Christians, to Jews, to God's people, even in the Muslim religion. All of the children of the book, Abraham, Isaac, Abraham, I should say, with the beginning of the Muslim faith and the Jewish faith, going back to Abraham, they both claim the same ancestral father. They both claim 5 as a grace number that's a divine number of relevance to the children of God. The other side of the coin is in the occult, in the sorcery, in the magic. 5 is the number of death to enemies and defense. Therefore, why has the Pentagon got 5 sides? Well, in the occult rituals, the Pentagon is this building that has occult meaning, death to enemies and defense, all the weapons of war, all the protections of the defensive system. So it has great relevance. You can go through many, many, many numbers and find similar. The place where I have the greatest concern is when you start getting into phrases. So if I can take 2, 3, 4, 5 words and then derive a numerical value from those words, I can manipulate it. I can sift things in and begin to do constructs. So, for example, in a base 6 system, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Computer is 1, 1, 1. If I go to a base 6 system, by the way, 111 is a number of war. 11 is a number of discord. 1111 is world war. 111111 is total war. So you have war numbers in there. When you start dialing in 2, 3, 4, 5 words, I can change a word here, a word there, a letter here, a letter there. I can make it mean anything within that language of numbers, and they do, because they communicate. You know, numbers is this hidden language of the elite all around the world. They use it all the time. So with that in mind, they're constantly playing around with these numbers, kind of sending hidden messages and trying to get occult power over the people, as though it's some act of God. But it's really not. It's the act of Merlins. It's the acts of magicians manipulating the numbers to get magical power, or appear to be. And that's why it's very important that we be careful. I don't conduct my affairs based on some perfect alignment of the numbers to say certain things, mean certain things at just the right moment in just the right way. Because as a general rule, I'm looking to God in heaven to direct my actions, to direct my moves and my next thoughts. And I don't need the numbers to tell me that. I'm not going to be controlled by the numbers. Many of the people that we deal with, however, are looking to those numbers. And if they don't get the right dance, they don't get the right combination, if they can't manipulate it to come out just right, they won't move. They're locked up. Why? The devil has them. You know, there's a natural alignment of the numbers, and there's a manufactured alignment of the numbers to say things that aren't necessarily what are in our best interest. The devil himself, details, in the numbers. I'm just not going to be controlled by that. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm aware of it. I pay attention, but where I pay attention is because the people trying to control us, they want to have the illusion of the numbers to back them up. And so they're constantly trying to make the numbers say things that aren't necessarily, it's manufactured. It's not real. Am I saying it the right way? Is that clicking for you guys?
Yeah.
Totally.
Like the big thing, like you said, there's a nice number 8 there. Thanks.
Yeah.
Orange 8. There you go.
Yep.
And the orange 8 is nice one. So orange is 60, and the number 8, if you spell 8, is 49. Add them together is 109, which is 17. So nice one there. Nice, buddy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well,
Good
there's a
spot.
lot of people get pretty excited about the 8 stuff. Hold on one second there. People are excited about the 8s and having all sorts of great meaning ritually for power and protection and stuff like that. I'm aware of that. It doesn't mean that I care that much. I don't even think about it when I'm doing what I'm doing. I do what I'm doing for other reasons. I don't necessarily consider what that number might mean as I'm going. There we go.
I guess as well, and like when you said about the difference between manufactured and natural, we've had that conversation before. And I think one of the things from our perspective of where we are, because we're not on the inside with kind of military information and the things that you get or privy to. So we're out on this side trying to kind of keep everyone's spirits high, using the things that the gifts that, God or the universe has given to us, and we're trying to connect the dots, and we're not privy to, you know, the maneuvers on the ground. And so we're always trying to make sense of what, you know, what we can, and trying to raise our hope and keep our morale high. So because it's kind of a ring-fenced operation or a need-to-know basis, if we're on that side of where we are, you know, we're trying to keep everything.
Well, let me dive in here.
We're not able to drill down and know specifically X, Y, Z of what's going on. Where, you know, some guys like yourself have more of an eye on that. And have a,
let me just say this. This is very important. I've gotten a bunch of heat here recently, as though somehow people are being asked just to stand by, watch, enjoy the show, don't do anything. Your actions, your efforts don't mean anything right now. Okay, that is not true. Totally not true. The truckers in Canada doing what they're doing, and now some backup coming from America. The people at the school board meetings, the people protesting in various locations, the huge turnout in Paris the other day. That's all extremely relevant. People making and voicing their angst at what's happening and how it's going on. That's critical. That public showing up in the conversation is critical for getting America and the world back on track. That said, yes, there's a number of actions that are outside the ability of many people to have much influence on. Does that mean that what they're doing means nothing? No, not at all. It's kind of one of those things where, and I know our prices are a little different than yours over there. So
you're getting more used to British prices.
Yeah.
You need to get one of those stickers, Juan, of Biden that says, "I did that."
Oh, it's so funny. Here in the States, about half the time when I'm fueling up, it's got a sticker on the gas pump. I did that. It's so funny.
Yeah.
So, you know, with what he's claiming to do and to have done and things like that. So it's actually pretty amazing. People are really anxious to make known their angst over what's happening on the fuel prices here in the country, I guarantee you. Because they're much higher now than they were. It's become, you know, a very serious situation here with prices. And here in the States, we have greater distances that people travel all the time. So, you know, high gas prices really affect us here in the States, more so than many other places in the country, or, you know, in the world. Because we drive, you know, our life involves driving greater distances all the time. We're more spread out. Our cities aren't all condensed. We don't have the train infrastructure. People say, well, you got to get high-speed rail. I had one of my associates to know he wanted to use a bunch of the money that we had from the leftover from what we did taking down the Soviet Union to rebuild the train infrastructure in America. And I had, you know, great angst about that because as far as I'm concerned, that's about as dumb as they come. You're not going to service America out in places like I'm here right now with trains. It forces everybody to have to live in a little cluster. America is a big country. It's a big world. When you choke it down to just a few little rail lines, you're restricting the growth. The vehicles and the trucks provide the mobility to spread out across the land and be much more efficient. Yeah, you use fuel to get there and get back. That's the whole point. You need the energy to function. I'm dealing at the project over in Africa right now, and I can't say the specifics because it's under non-disclosure agreements, but ways to move cargo and traffic and not using stupid ass rail systems. It's just moronic. They've been talking about putting rail systems in Africa for 150 years, and it doesn't fit the terrain, the way materials have to be moved around, and then the cost for return. It's just lame. But there are other technologies that can do, move large amounts of freight around very cost effectively, simply. And that's part of the modern era. There's places, remote places. I have some place myself that's a reasonably remote place, but with new technologies, it's not remote at all. It's right next door and simple to get to and simple to get back from. And I don't need expensive highways. I don't need a waterway. Look at the way the world was developed around waterways. So most of the cities are, right on the ocean or a river, a navigable river. Why? Because 100 years ago, 150, 200 years ago, if you didn't have that, you didn't have a way to get around. And the technology improvements have made it so that places that weren't efficient, effective, cost effective to live are now available to us, cost effectively. So anyway.
Juan, it's I'm probably going to have to wrap up at my end because we've been on a couple of hours, but it's always great to break bread. I'm wondering if the girls have got any concluding questions and if you've got any concluding remarks. I did want to say one thing, the 141, which you pointed out, I drilled into that further, which was a lot of fun, which I hadn't noticed before, but I got to 141. 141, I see this, a personal one, Tom Bushnell. 141 comes to 245, Thomas Sidney Bushnell, but it also comes to currency revaluation and also the pure love of Christ. So I thought those were interesting ones again, which I hadn't noticed actually, the 141, how it actually still completes. But I hear what you're saying about manufactured and also just natural. So, but yeah, if there's any final questions, girls, and Juan, if you want to leave us with some closing remarks. So maybe Rachel and then Kathy, and we'll go from there.
I was just going to say, after our last Zoom, Juan, I did read the Law of War manual, the beginning of it, just the changes. And just the changes alone are pretty indicative of what President Trump was trying to do. So if you don't have time to read the entire manual, if you just read the changes, the updates, it's pretty telling as to what's happening right now behind the scenes. It's pretty remarkable.
Well, again, all eyes, for good reason, have been on President Trump and his next actions and responses and the stolen election, etc. But as I've mentioned numerous times, even from the Law of War manual perspective, the most critical actions occur ultimately if you can't get to justice in the Justice Department, if you can't get to justice in the policing side of government and the legislative side of government in the United States and the courtroom side of government in the United States, the last safety to protect the citizens, to protect the Constitution and the Republic, the Union of States, is the military. That is its job. It's just that it can't do it internally towards its own citizenry on its own land unless certain checkpoints have been reached, unless certain thresholds have been crossed. And that has occurred at this point in time, arguably, maybe, unless you know what's going on behind the scenes. And in which case, while President Trump he's still a president. He was never impeached, so he's a president for eternity. He wasn't impeached. They tried to impeach him. He wasn't impeached. Is he the president of the United States right now? No, he's not. But that doesn't mean he's not in a powerful position with powerful authorities within certain limited definitions, because he hasn't passed the baton and because we're in a state of war, technically. And those next moves that will reveal his roles and authorities are about to take place. Some of them won't be fully understood until some later point in time. In the years to come, out over time, people will play through and argue over the details of what just occurred and is about to occur for the rest of our lives because of the amazing things that are about to happen. Much of it will remain somewhat obscure for quite some time out into the future. Why? Because this war is far from over. But ultimately, you're going to see that the military took action, had to take action, will take action in a protective sense, because that is their duty, their obligation, their sworn oaths. And now with the legal authorities, even based on international law, Geneva Convention, legal code of law, checkpoints, international law, that they can do the things that they have to do next without fear of repercussion against them for violating the legal rights of their own citizens. And now that those thresholds have been crossed, there's a period of time that has to elapse. They couldn't do things prior to that threshold technically legally being crossed. Had they done certain preparations for actions or actually taken some actions prior to that moment, then it could be argued that they were engaged in the preparation for a coup, if you will. Once that threshold had been crossed, the preparations, the actions, the maneuverings, there's no limit. They don't have 24 hours to act. Doesn't matter. They are legally able to do it now that certain criteria have been crossed, checked off. How soon will they act? Again, art of war, not law of war manual, art of war. What preparations do you make so that when you do take action, you're guaranteed to win? Everything at stake. You can't take chances, and you can't be blind. You can't be lackadaisical about the citizens that you have to protect. So as hard as it is, just like waiting to land at Normandy for an entire extra year after you'd already gotten into the war, you're already moving supplies. What if America and the Allies had tried to land at Normandy in 1943? Could we have lost? Could we have lost our key troops? Could we have not had enough equipment there to fight the war effectively? You're reaching out across half the world to go fight the war closer to your enemy's home turf. Would we have lost because we acted too soon? Only half prepared? Would have been horrible. Would the commanders have been wise, intelligent to have moved sooner to save lives? Because the Nazis are killing people every day. Communities are being overrun. They're stealing their businesses. They're stealing their manufacturing stuff. They're going to get stronger every day. You got to act now. You got to move now. You got to move quickly. Well, okay. And people are crying and moaning and bemoaning the inaction, the ineptitude, the slowness to act of the leaders and the military people involved. Well, were they wrong? And was there a lot at risk? If Germany had 6 more months, if the Battle of the Bulge had been successful, their wonder weapons would have begun to be deployed. They'd have been nuking somebody. They'd have been using their wonder weapons to attack our forces. And it'd be like the difference between shooting pop guns and shooting fully automatic machine guns. All of a sudden, let down range, they got us beat. It was very, very dicey And by the way, even the nukes that America used in Japan, the material was stolen from the Nazis or taken from the Nazis, gotten in trades with the Nazi leadership to pick a side so they didn't have to go to Russia, if you will. A lot of those materials to make the bombs didn't come from the America and the work over in Kennewick, Washington, came from stuff that we got from the Germans, or we wouldn't have been able to build a bomb to win the war. What if that had been turned against us and it had been New York and LA that got bombed? You might have a whole different world. So there was huge risks, and our side knew it. But they still knew, as serious as it was, they couldn't act prematurely with everything at stake. It's the same thing here. We're going against a globalist cabal trying to take over the world, trying to depopulate the world, repopulate it with just their tribe, their way. Everything's at stake. Don't think for a second the people involved in making the decisions don't understand how much is at stake. Prayer required, but I'm personally very comfortable. We got this in this current phase of the war, and we're in pretty good shape. Enjoy the show. Do what you can to resist, to stop, to overturn within your skill sets. I can tell you that other people in other levels with their skill sets and their capabilities monetarily, connection-wise, industrially, they're stepping forward, each in their own lane, in their own zone. Play your zone. If you're a citizen, you're a mother, you're fighting to keep the kids from going into a transgender school, fight. That's where God put you. Do the fight. Everybody has different skills. Everybody has different abilities, things that are in their realm of control and possession. Nobody's telling anybody to just stand down and watch, in a disconnected way what's going on. Find a point that you can engage. And if you're not Eisenhower, don't get all pissed off because he's not doing it the way you do it. Well, if God wanted you there, you'd probably be there. If you're not there, it's probably because God didn't want you there. Take a deep breath, play your zone. We're going to win this thing, and we're going to win big. And it's not as far away as you might have been led to believe. Hang in there. We got it.
Juan, you should have been a coach. That was a pretty good pep talk for the locker room.
No, I'm sweating bullets. I look, I feel it. I hear from people every day, some more than others. They're sweating bullets. They don't understand. They hear stuff that throws them off, and it just frustrates the crap out of them. But, if you know the allies are coming and you're the restaurant owner, the theater owner, the food supplier in Paris, do you just stick your head up in the middle of a firefight? You put no Nazis allowed on your business and think you're going to, help the effort because you're resisting? Look, some of the actions are easier to understand than others. But down the road, I think many people will have to be ashamed that they ever thought that someone like President Trump or other similar people had somehow betrayed them, gone over to the other side, done evil with their actions to betray America and betray the world. Well, okay, believe me, time will tell. I'm very comfortable that the American citizenry and the world are being well served by these people in their work to protect freedom, including religious freedom, political freedom, out into the future. We are being very well served and assisted. These are patriots. These are people under divine direction, that know that there's an eternity and a God in heaven to judge our actions, past, present, and future, and they're operating accordingly because they know that white throne judgment's coming and they want to be on the right side of history. I would hope all of your listeners are on the right side of history also. Keep the faith, hang there, take action where you can, keep your head when you do. Don't do anything stupid. The only Marine is a live Marine. Just jumping up and waving your arms in the air and making a spectacle so everybody can see you and see where you stand on an issue doesn't mean you're very smart if it's right in the middle of a firefight. Pick your moments, stay in the fight.
Thanks, Juan.
Thank you, Juan.
God bless you, buddy.
For sure.
Thanks,
All right.
girls. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, love
Appreciate
you,
it.
Juan.
All right.
Talk to you soon. Love you. Take
right.
care.
Bye.
Bye.